To be or not to be, that's the questions. Today we will start our reading about rich get richer and the poor get imprisoned. First, I will introduce myself as the discussion leader for this meeting, and Megat as the passage master, Ali as the reporter, and Firdaus as the devil advocates, and Faiz as the creative coordinator. First, I want to remind about a few reminders before we start our discussion. First, it is not our view that the poor are all innocent victims persecuted by the evil rich. All the poor in the prison do commit crimes, and they are in jail because they were found guilty of the crimes they did. In addition, this is a good evidence that the poor do commit crime, a greater portion of the crimes against person and property listed in FBI index than the middle and upper class do, relative to the numbers in the numbers in the national population. Second, it must be borne in mind that the movement from arrest to sentencing is a funding process, so that discrimination that occurs at an early stage shapes the population that reach at a later stage. For example, some recent studies find little economic bias in sentence length for people convicted of similar crimes. So, first question, for the same criminal behavior, why the poor are more likely to commit crimes? So, I think my friends can be answer this question. So, I think maybe Megat can try to answer this question.
I think because they are poor, they tend to have many reasons to make or forced to make crimes. For example, they do not have enough money to buy food. Because they are so hungry and yet they don't have enough money to buy food, they steal some, and that makes them be a criminal. From the article, page 11, paragraph 4, 16% of the state prisoners had been unemployed and still looking for work. In paragraph 5, 90% of the prisoners have earned less than $3,000 a year. In paragraph 6, of all US inmates, 47 did not graduate from high school. So we can conclude that some of the prisoners do not have any job, some have but with a very little income, and some don't even have qualification to have any job.
I agree with Megat by saying that the tendency of poor people to commit crime is higher due to their financial backgrounds. However, it doesn't mean that richer people don't have the tendency to commit crimes, but they have higher chances to not get arrested compared to the poor.
Are you suggesting that the justice system is not functioning well in the society? Well, from what I heard from Megat, is that the statistic of those who commit crimes is clearly shown that majority of them are from the poor people. However, we have to understand a crime is still a crime, no matter of who you are. If you are a rich people, a poor people, or anybody, if you do some deviant thing that disobey the law, it's still considered as a crime. Therefore, the justice institution has to do their work in order to determine who is right and who is wrong, and also to determine who is guilty and who is innocent.
That's right too. I do agree with the opinion given by Firdaus, saying that the justice system should not be blindfolded by the criminals' economic status. Even though they are struggling to survive, they are not allowed to commit crimes to fulfill their needs. However, justice system should act according to the protocol. I have heard one interesting point raised by Faiz, which is about richer people have higher chances to not get arrested even though they commit crime. It is somehow a good point to further discuss.
Well, thank you for raising such a good question, Ali. It is actually mentioned in the article about some studies shows that serious criminal behavior is widespread among the middle and upper class individuals, although these individuals are rarely arrested. In paragraph 2, page 3, the poor people by any means are getting more attention by the police. According to Terence Thornberry, He found that among boys arrested for equally serious offences, police were more likely to refer the lower class youth than the more affluent ones to juvenile court. The police were more likely to deal with the wealthier youngsters informally.
There is another factor that contributes, that is racial bias. We usually relate that white people are wealthier than black. In 1995, while out of 8 white Americans received income below the poverty line, 3 out of every 10 black Americans did. Study of juvenile in 1994 exposed that decision made by the police and courts to detain a youngster were highly influenced by race. Not only were there direct effects of race, but indirectly socioeconomic status was related to detention, thus putting youth of color again at risk for differential treatment. So I think I guess there's anyone who can explain their ideas about this.
So basically, both of you are saying that there are two factors that involved on this issue. The first one, how does race affect decision making by the authority? And the second one is, how does the economics disadvantage allow them to accuse more than those who have better economic status? So now I realize that there is an unfair judgment made by the law enforcer. It is irony on how the laws were supposed to establish justice, but in fact it ruined it. If it is true, who else can we rely on to stand for the justice?
In my understanding, based on what you have addressed about the issue, shows that the court's decision is not reliable. Hence, it can be questioned. In what ways does your point can be true? As you can see that the judges chosen have their specific requirement and credibility to be accepted as the judges itself. Furthermore, they were gone thorough procedure before they made any crucial decisions in all cases. For example, in Malaysia, serious criminals need to undergo many stages of court according to their degree of crime before they are proven guilty or even innocent.
I understand that a certain procedure need to be fulfilled to come to an absolute decision that determines the truth. But how about this one case? A poor middle-aged man who stole $2, I think, out of one of the malls in Malaysia. And to a surprise, he was sentenced 2 years in the jail and fined 5,000 ringgit. In other cases, Texas, I think it's Texas, one of the rich kid in Texas he killed 4 people, I think it's a family, in a drunken, he was drunken, and he was driving and crashed that he should spare in jail. But with a simple reason of suffered from affluenza, it might seem obvious that both of the cases were so different, but but instead, the punishment given somehow never going to suit as according to the degree of crime they made. Is there any other reasons that leads to such decision? I mean, would there be any party that involved in these cases that it affects the decision-making process, hence came to such an unfair decision?
Actually, there are several independent factors in the court itself that can influence the decision made by the judge. I would like to highlight the importance of a lawyer. As we know, every prosecutor will be represented by a lawyer in the court. The skills, qualification, and experience of the lawyer are very important for the case. In this situation, poor people obviously couldn't afford to any high-paid lawyer. Then a public lawyer will be assigned to handle their case. The lawyer assigned will be chosen randomly, and then so sometimes the unlucky poor will get a low-rated lawyer, and that makes them impossible to win the case.
I agree that the lawyer plays important roles in the court. However, they cannot win easily the case, even though they have high reputations and even though they have good background. They have every every lawyer has to do their own research, collect the evidence, gather the eyewitnesses, and many more in order to convince the judge. I mean, it doesn't matter if a lawyer has many experiences or not. He just has to work hard to win the case itself. So I think it is a 50-50 chance.
Well, Firdaus, talking about the eyewitness, I found out that it also affects the environment in the court. Psychologically, prosecutor with more eyewitness will always assume to be less guilty. Money can easily buy a public witness. I mean eyewitness. Based on Kant's theory of truth, if there are 10 eyewitnesses, even though all of them are lying, but they convey the same idea and it is reasonable, we will accept that as the truth.
Based on the article, page 7, paragraph 4, a recent study in Tennessee, Virginia, and Kentucky shows that public defenders got cases dropped for 11.3% of their defendants, and private attorneys got dismissals for 48% for their defendants. This proves that what Firdaus said is really correct. Moreover, in paragraph 7, indigent prisoners, a description that applies to just about everybody on death row who seek further review must rely on the charity of a few private lawyers and on cash-starved organizations like the Southern Prisoners Defense Committee.
So, in this part, we can deduce that there are two major factors that influence the judge's decision in court. So the first one is the credibility of lawyer. The second one is the role of eyewitness that can also affect the judge's decision. In this world, every system are affected by capitalism, and justice system is not excluded. We are all suffocated by the capitalist ideology. Capitalist system makes people prone to become greedy for wealth. That's very, very bad.
So what happened after that? Seems like things are getting worse for the poor people. What will happen to their fate, by the way?
Well, according to the Times, crimes that tend to be committed by the poor get tougher sentences than those committed by the richer. One of the studies by Vera Institute of Justice also shows the similar pattern.
The reason behind this are due to the introduction of sentencing guidelines and minimum mandatory sentences by the federal government. At first, government intention is to eliminate discrimination. However, it doesn't work. Worse come to that, those who decide what to charge were before come from the judges, and now it changes hand to the prosecutors. As we discussed before, it comes back again to the capitalist system. There are some factors that can lead to this. The first one is economic bias against the harmful acts. And the second one is economic class bias among crimes. And lastly, among defendants. Convicted of the same crimes. When both of the defendants committing the same crimes, the poor tend to receive less probation and more years of confinement than the well-off defendants.
So, basically, the poor were discriminated since the first time they commit crime until they get sentenced. That's how the richer get richer and the poor get prison.